Hey, it's me, Vicky Marie. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in this crazy world we're living in. So, I just wanted to come on and give you an update on the Mushroom Murderess, Erin Patterson. Um, Now, she has appealed against her sentence. I'm going to do a quick resume of the case for anyone who doesn't know about it. I think most of my viewers have probably do know about it. We watched it, the trial, that trial that went on forever and ever. And Erin was found guilty of murdering three people and attempted murder of another person. And she was given a very long prison sentence, but she was given the possibility of parole after a certain number of years. Erin doesn't seem to appreciate that she was lucky to get any chance of parole at all after murdering three people in such the brutal way that she did and nearly finishing off a fourth person. Very lucky to not get a life sentence without any possibility of parole. But no, she's not appreciating that. She's appealing it because Erin only cares about Erin, doesn't she? She doesn't care about the people, the family that she's sort of desiccated, really, completely ruined a complete family. She doesn't care about that. All she cares about is herself. She's never admitted to what she's done, even though she was overwhelmingly found guilty. The evidence was overwhelming against her. But of course, with any murder trial, there's not normally anybody who actually sees the murder happen. So often it is circumstantial evidence, which I think the prosecution put together really well. I'm going to just go over it very briefly because I can't go over the whole thing. I'll be here all day. I'll go over it all very briefly just to remind ourselves just how horrible what this woman did was. First of all, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for liking. Thank you for subscribing. Please think about subscribing. If you're not already subscribed, it's completely free way you can help my channel. Special thank you to my members, as always, people who buy me coffees, send super stickers, send nice emails, suggest cases, any positive contribution you make to my channel. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. Okay, so yes, let's have a look what's going on with her. Hi, Daniel. Happy Sunday. Oh, hello, lovely lurkers. Hello, replay crew. And hello, anybody who comes into the chat. I'll say hello to you as you come along. So, this case, it took place in Australia. It's an Australian case, and this is the sort of seemed like a typical sort of mum type person, Erin Patterson. She was not divorced, she was estranged from her husband, the father of her two children. And it seems like, reading between the lines and what came up as evidence in the trial, messages from her to other people in her Facebook groups, etc., she hated her ex-husband with a vengeance. We're not really quite sure why, because it seems like it was actually Erin who wanted to break up that relationship, not him, So why she was so angry with him is not clear, is it? But she was, I think, because he just, with Erin, if you don't kowtow, Erin was like, she's like this sort of control freak, and if things don't go her way, she gets angry about it, isn't it? So I think what was happening with Erin, her estranged in-laws and her estranged husband, she was so Erin, she had quite a lot of money, she'd inherited it, so made not made money but inherited money, so she was quite wealthy, and she used that wealth to control people like giving out loans. But the thing is, with someone like Erin, the help that you offer, it doesn't come without strings, does it? And the biggest string that would be attached to any help, any financial help that Erin gave, would be just, kowtowing to her and being under her control. And then always felt to me with Erin that when she felt like things weren't under her control as much as they had been, like the family, her estranged family weren't doing what she thought she should. What she thought that they should do, she got sort of angry with them. Anyway, it's thought that she tried to kill her estranged husband several times, wasn't it, with poisoned food. Anyway, what she did in the end was she invited him and her in-laws and their two friends around for lunch, and she made a beef Wellington, and she put death cap mushrooms in the beef Wellington to deliberately poison them. And not only that, while they were there, she told them she had cancer, which was a lie. They all prayed together for her. Her ex-husband, or her estranged husband, I have to keep remembering they're not actually divorced, not even now, as far as I know. He decided not to go, didn't he? He decided not to go, but unfortunately his mum and dad went, and their two friends, so that was Don and Gail, and their two friends, Heather and Ian. They went along to the lunch and not suspecting that was going to be the last lunch they ever had. For three of them anyway. Ian survived, but he had to have a transplant. I think it was a liver transplant, or one of his organs had to be transplanted. So she invited them all round for lunch, and of course she served up this lethal beef Wellington. And sorry, just one moment. So yes, she served up this lethal beef Wellington that was laced with poisonous mushrooms. And, I always think about how did that lunch go? Like how did they say goodbye? As she was saying goodbye to them all, she knew that what was going to happen to them. It's quite horrible, isn't it, really, when you think about it? But anyway, that's what happened. Three of them died. Don and his wife Gail and Heather died, and Ian survived, as I say, but very ill. It took him a long time to recover because death cap mushrooms, they kill you from the inside out, and it's not a quick thing. It's very long, prolonged, painful, horrible. Anyway, without going into all the evidence, because as I say, the prosecution actually called over 50 witnesses, whereas the defence only called one witness, and that was Erin Patterson herself. And she was cross-examined, interviewed and then cross-examined for quite a few days, but she was the only person who spoke for the defence. There were no expert witnesses for the defence. There were no character witnesses. There was nobody for the defence except Erin. So Erin, thinking she's cleverer than everybody else, she thought she could persuade the jury. Anyway, she failed miserably, and she was found guilty and given a very long life sentence. As I said, the judge decided he would give her the possibility of parole when she will be about 80 before she gets this possibility of parole, because he felt that due to the crime that she'd committed, she would probably be in solitary confinement for a long time. She would probably be in solitary confinement for a long time. So he felt it was fairer to give her a possibility of parole, even though it was, I think, 40 years or something like that, 30 or 40 years before she'd get that, and she would be, very elderly, but still a chance for parole. Anyway, Erin's not happy with that sentence, even though many would say she's lucky to even get a chance at parole. The verdict was unanimous. Anyway, she's appealing, so she's going to put her family through it all again. She's against it, and all I'm really on here to tell you is about the appeal and what the reasons that she's appealing, but also the fact that it might backfire on her, because she's, as she appealed the conviction, now the prosecution have appealed the conviction as well, saying that she should not be given a chance at parole. So it could backfire on her completely. Anyway, so this is her appeal. These are the reasons that she's appealing. So she's now got a legal team which includes high-profile human rights lawyer Julian McMahon, and they filed documents in the Victorian Court of Appeal, and they cited 7 primary grounds for overturning the jury's verdict, and these are the grounds. The first one is jury irregularity, the most significant claim. This is the most significant claim, and this involves a fundamental irregularity because the jurors were reportedly sequestered in the same hotel as key police witnesses and members of the prosecution for the majority of their deliberations. Now, the thing is, it was Erin herself. She wanted to have her trial in the small town, didn't she? She didn't want to go to the Supreme Court, to a big city where there'd be lots more places for jurors to, they'd been able to keep the jurors separate from the prosecution and the witnesses, etc. She didn't want to do that. She wanted to have her trial in a small court because she thought she would have the best chance of getting away with things there, because she thought that the jury would be more naive and more likely to believe her, just like those relatives that she murdered believed her when she told them she had cancer, but she actually didn't. So that was a ploy by Erin to have the case in that small town. And that, I think there's only one hotel in the town. So, that is why they all had to stay in the same hotel. Then, so that's the first and supposedly the most significant claim for appeal. The next one is a motive contradiction. Lawyers argue that the prosecution committed a substantial miscarriage of justice by initially stating there was no evidence of motive, but then they implied a motive which was related to child support and her estranged husband, Simon, during their closing address. So, motive contradiction, that's a strange one, isn't it, for an appeal, a reason for appeal. A substantial miscarriage of justice by initially stating there was no evidence of motive, but then implying a motive which was related to child support and her estranged husband. So that's reason number 2. So don't forget there are 7 reasons or 7 cited reasons for this appeal. So number 3 was unfair questioning. The appeal claims the prosecution's cross-examination of Erin was unfair and oppressive. Now, we went through the trial, didn't we? We listened to it every day. What do you think? Do you think it was unfair and oppressive? Basically, I think what they mean by that is it was successful. The prosecution's cross-examination by Nanette, wasn't it, the prosecuting lawyer? She was very good. she was very good. She challenged everything that Erin said. Erin came out with so many lies during that case, didn't she? So many lies, and the prosecution just kept pinning her down with them. So, I don't know how far they're going to get with that with the judge. Exclusion of evidence. So the defence argues that the trial judge wrongly excluded evidence from an SD card, including photos and videos of mushrooms that could have supported Erin's claim of being a regular mushroom forager. Now, I don't know how that's going to go, because let's not forget that in the beginning, when Erin was first questioned and she was asked, had she foraged those mushrooms? No, never foraged mushrooms. No, never foraged mushrooms in my life. And then during the trial, she suddenly came up and said, oh, yeah, she was a regular mushroom forager. Because in the beginning, she was trying to say that she didn't have a dehydrator. Remember, she lied about that. She said she didn't have a dehydrator. She took it to the tip of after it was realised that these people had died of death cap mushrooms. She was caught on CCTV taking a mushroom dehydrator that she didn't have, according to her. She told the police as clear as day she did not have a dehydrator. And even though she had an instruction manual for a dehydrator in her house that they found, and she said, oh, don't know where that came from. It could have been there for years. Anyway, then, as I say, afterwards, she was caught on the CCTV at the local dumping the dehydrator that didn't exist. So she, of course, by the time then it came to trial, all those things that she'd said in her initial police interviews, never foraged mushrooms. Oh, yeah, actually, I have foraged mushrooms. Never had a dehydrator. Oh, yeah, actually, I have had a dehydrator. All those things, and many others. So she's a proven liar, whichever way you look at it. And then you've just got to think, why would she lie about that? Why would she lie and say she had never foraged mushrooms in the beginning? So, of course, she says she just didn't want them to think bad of her, or, she thought she would make her a suspect. Yes, it would, because you were a suspect, Erin, because you murdered them. But anyway, so that's another reason. How's that going to go? So it says the judge wrongly excluded evidence from an SD card, which included photos and videos of mushrooms that could have supported her claim of being a regular mushroom forager. And then another reason is the appeal challenges the admission of unfairly prejudicial evidence, such as cell tower location data and messages from Facebook friends. Well, prejudicial evidence is the evidence that proves someone's guilty. You're going to say, oh, that's prejudicial because it points towards someone's guilt. You can only allow evidence that doesn't point to your guilt. I mean, I just don't understand the premise behind that. Her cell tower location data, it was prejudicial because, that's where she was, looking for death cap mushrooms. And her messages from Facebook friends are prejudicial because that's where she talked about this family. That prejudicial does not mean untrue, does it? You can't remove all the evidence that proves someone's guilt because you're saying it's prejudicial. You can't, how can you do that? I don't get that. But anyway, so actually, although it says, so at the items I'm running down, it says 7 primary grounds, but that's actually only 6. Jury irregularity, motive contradiction, unfair questioning, exclusion of evidence, prejudicial evidence. That's all so that's actually 6, not 7. But anyway. So Erin was sentenced to 33 years before she could be considered for parole. And this is what she's appealing. But she's appealing the whole verdict, of course, not only the sentence. And when she released her appeal, as I say, it may well backfire on her because the prosecution initially were not happy that she was given a possibility of parole, were they? They weren't happy at all. But they did not appeal against it because they were waiting to see what Erin would do. So as soon as Erin appealed against it, um, the prosecution appealed. Sorry, my throat's a little bit funny this morning. Gosh. So the prosecution are challenging the sentence or challenging the 33-year parole period. They're saying it is an inadequate sentence. They argue that a life sentence without the possibility of parole is the only appropriate punishment for the horrendous nature of the crimes. And I agree with that completely. You couldn't get a more horrible crime. I mean, first of all, 3 people have died and 1 has nearly died. They're vulnerable people, elderly people, or older people, ranging from sort of 60s to 70s, their ages. They went round to her house in good faith. They looked forward to that meal. She sat and watched them eat every mouthful. I think to me, the worst thing, that is the worst thing. Well, there's another thing that is bad there's a few, Erin is such a narcissist. Yeah, so she sat there, she watched them eat that food, knowing what it was going to do to them. That's the first thing. Let them pray for her because she'd lied to them about having cancer. So don't forget, she didn't think anyone was going to survive. So luckily, Ian survived and he could say what actually happened at that lunch, because she's not talking about it, is she? You won't get the truth out of her. You couldn't believe a word that came out of her mouth. And luckily, Ian survived and Ian could tell the truth about what happened at that lunch. And I think Ian was such a credible witness because, you can see that he's not a liar, unlike her. And it was him who said about the plates, how the plates were different. The plates that the 4 guests had were different from the plate that Erin served herself with. And those plates have still never been found. Those plates that Ian remembers, the grey plates, as opposed to the plate, Erin's plate apparently was a different size, a different colour, according to Ian. And you just got to think, who do you believe? Do you believe Ian or do you believe a proven liar like Erin? And yeah, those plates were never found. I often wonder about what happened to those plates, but of course it could be anywhere. So yeah, unfortunately for her, Ian survived, so he could tell the truth about what happened, about her saying she had cancer, about them all praying for her. So she sat there and maybe held hands with them, prayed, or let them pray for her. She didn't believe in God, so it wasn't about prayer. She was contemptuous of their religious beliefs. They were very religious, they attended church regularly. They had their faith, their beliefs, and Ian, in fact, is a pastor. And Erin was contemptuous of that. She didn't believe in anything, but she let them pray for her anyway because, that's the sort of nice person she is. But then even more, to me, it's just the thought of those goodbyes. When you've had family round and you're all saying goodbye, with the kisses, with see you at church tomorrow, see you next week, or you must come round again soon for lunch, or etc. Just chilling, isn't it, to think of how it might have gone. And she would have been she would have had that duper's delight knowing she was sending them off to their deaths. Anyway, the other thing that I think is just terrible is when Erin did that sort of car crash interview by the car, when the media sort of caught up with her, didn't they? And she did her fake crying and fake tears and, oh, I love them, I would never hurt them. She got all their names wrong. Like she said, oh, I'm sorry that Ian's dead. And Ian wasn't dead, it was Don who was dead. And he said, I hope Don survives. Don was already dead. So she got all their names mixed up. So it's like, to me, they weren't that important to her that she could even remember their names, or say their right names anyway. And she was so obviously faking it, it was so obvious. But again, Erin thinks she's clever. Now, I think that's the most dangerous thing about Erin to me. She is a thicko, really, but she thinks she's very, very clever. And everyone described her as being a super sleuth and clever. She mixed with people, and I don't mean this in a horrible way about them, but people who would take her at face value. She couldn't. If she couldn't have mixed with more sophisticated people who maybe might have seen through her. She mixed with people that she knew were good people, good, honest, salt of the earth people, and they did not doubt her, because it wasn't in their nature to doubt people, and she relied on that, and that's why she wanted that trial in that small courtroom in this small town, because she didn't want what she thought she got away with it with that poor family, and she thought she could get away with it with other similar people to them. She thought they would believe her lies, just like poor Don and Gail Heather and Ian believed her lies, because nice people like that, they don't have any reason, they're not cynical, they didn't have any reason to doubt her. They took her in at face value and not knowing the evil, the darkness that's inside her. Very scary, actually, because people like that walk amongst us. So anyway, that's what the prosecution are appealing the sentence. One reason is the inadequate sentence, and the next reason is judicial error, and they contend the sentencing judge. They say that he erred by assuming Patterson would spend years in solitary confinement for her own safety without any evidence to support that claim. So this was the reason that the judge gave for giving her some parole, because he felt, why it matters, I don't know. He felt that due to the nature of her offence, she would spend years in solitary confinement, and because of that, then she deserved a chance at parole later on, because she would, I suppose, in his eyes, lead such a miserable life in prison. But that's the whole point of prison, Judge, really. You're not supposed to have a great time, are you? And will she be in solitary confinement? So he was talking about probabilities, that she would probably spend all her time in solitary confinement, but he doesn't know. So this is the prosecution. What they're saying is, they don't know. He doesn't know that. He has no evidence to support the fact that she might spend all those 33 years in solitary confinement. So there's no reason to give her a chance of parole. So that's the prosecution's appeal against the sentence. So we're going to we've got two appeals, prospective appeals, and we haven't heard any more since the appeals were lodged. Of course, it has to be decided whether the appeals will go ahead or not. So on our current status and timeline, she was found guilty on July the 7th. Oh my God, it's nearly a year ago now. For the murder, well, it's not nearly a year, but it's not far off. It's 9 months. 2025, July the 7th, she was found guilty for the murders of Don and Gail Patterson and Heather Wilkinson, and the attempted murder of Ian Wilkinson. She received 3 concurrent life sentences on September the 8th, 2025. She appealed. Her formal appeal was lodged in November 2025, and the next steps are both the defence and prosecution appeals are expected to be heard together in 2026. And if the conviction appeal is successful, the court could order a retrial or acquitter. So, what do you think? Yeah, let me know what you think about it. Do you think she'll be successful with her appeal? Do you think the prosecution will be successful? Anyway, it'll be coming up soon. I'll let you know as soon as I have any more details. Thank you for watching. I'll see you really soon in the next video. And until then, may your God go with you. Thank you. Hi, Kelly. Sorry, I'm just going now. Thank you. Bye.